to the members of the press that are here, and good morning certainly to the persons out there who are listening and viewing. It is good to be back here for my regular monthly press conference. It has come late in the month, and that is, of course, because of the last one and the timing of the last one. This will be my final press conference for the year, because next month, beginning on the 7th of December, we're going to budget debates here on the island of Nevis, and thereafter on the 14th of December, we're going to budget debates on the island of St. Kitts for the federal budget. And so this is the last opportunity that I will get to see some of you for this year 2021. I would like to thank at the outset the members of the press who have made this possible, who have come from time to time to share their concerns and ask their questions, and I trust and hope that I have been able to answer, if not all, most of the questions that you've posed. I start by extending condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Spencer Howell. Mr. Howell was an entrepreneur who contributed immensely to real estate development in Nevis. He was a founding director of the Bank of Nevis, and he, of course, perhaps is best known for his exploits in horse racing, where he was an organized administrator and enthusiast and involved in all aspects of horse racing for many, many years. To Mr. Howell's family that survived him, please accept from this podium the deepest condolences of the government and people of the island of Nevis. Let me, while I'm on that sad note, also extend the condolences to the family of Rafi Wallace. Rafi was well known to all of us. He was quite a famous cricketer, both for Nevis and the Leeward Islands, and Rafi has passed and gone on. We would like to extend condolences to his entire family, his wife, Ramona, and the entire family that is left to mourn. Let me switch from that to some congratulations. Let me congratulate Mr. Tajay Liebert. He was recently awarded a track and field scholarship at the Cumberland University in Tennessee. Tajay will also be traveling to Cali, Colombia, to represent the Federation in the first Junior Pan American Games over the period November 25th to December 6th, 2021. He will be competing in the 400-meter race. Congratulations also to Mr. Leroy Chapman. He has received a track and field scholarship to Monroe College in New York. Both Tajay and Leroy came through our inter-primary system here on the island of Nevis. They competed at the Inter-High Championships and represented our federation at the Carifta Games. I mention these two youngsters because I hope that they will be just another two of many who will be able to get scholarships and move on to fulfill their fullest potential. We are hopeful that young Tajay at Cumberland and Leroy at Monroe will have the opportunity to be exposed to the necessary coaching so that they can develop their phenomenal skills. This, ladies and gentlemen, is further justification as to why our government would have expended the necessary resources to build the Mondo Track facility. While we recognize that everything that is done in a democracy is subject to debate and discussion, these are youngsters who, prior to that Mondo facility, would have been running on a dirt track at the ETW Park. They now have a proper first-class IAAF certified surface on which to run and which to train. When they go to Cumberland and they go to Monroe, and young Tajay goes to Cali, Colombia to compete, he will be running on a track that is familiar because he has a first-class track here on the island of Nevis. That is what we call development. That is what we seek to do, to empower our people and put our people first in all that we do and at all times. And so I wanted to just mention those two youngsters who we hope and pray will go on to do phenomenal things. If I can look very briefly at the Ministry of Health, I have made the point publicly that the island of Nevis has not done quite as well as our sister island of St. Kitts in relation to our vaccination efforts against COVID-19. While St. Kitts, we are told, is somewhere in the vicinity of 86% vaccinated, Nevis is not yet 70%. We are at 67+% by our last tally. It means, therefore, that we have much work to do. And while 67% means that the majority, in fact the significant majority of our people have responded favorably to the government's calls and the calls from so many others in our health sector and in our business community, from our church and other leaders, that they go out and get vaccinated against COVID-19. It still tells us that a significant minority of our population, some just over 30%, have not heeded that call. With the FDA-approved Pfizer vaccine now being the vaccine that is being administered, I urge again parents especially to allow their children 12 years and over to be vaccinated. The more people that are vaccinated, the better prepared we will be, the better resistant our island will be against all of these new strains that are emerging. And as we look across the world and we see the ravages of COVID-19 still, we look at Austria, now in shutdown. We look at Germany, struggling. We look at other countries across Europe, all of which are struggling. It means that there is time that we do better. And so I continue to encourage our people to get vaccinated. It is, and has proven to be, the main weapon against COVID-19. In fact, I think if you needed any evidence, the evidence is right here in Nevis, and it's quite clear, because we have had 5 tragic deaths from COVID, all of whom were unvaccinated. Let me put that the other way. None of the deaths due to COVID in Nevis were among the vaccinated. Compare that to the fact that we've had some 6,500 or so persons vaccinated already on the island of Nevis. None of those have died due to COVID, and none of those have died from the vaccine. But the 5 persons that we've had who have died, all were unvaccinated. None were vaccinated. I think that speaks for itself, that 100% of our deaths have been among the unvaccinated population. I think that the science is clear. For those who continue to say they don't believe, this science globally is clear, that those being impacted most negatively by COVID-19 continue to be the unvaccinated. And I wish to make it very clear, there is no suggestion on my part, nor has there been any suggestion from any quarter, that vaccines somehow make it impossible for you to get COVID. Nobody has said that. What vaccines do, and the COVID vaccine is no different, it reduces the risk dramatically to you of getting COVID. It reduces the risk dramatically of transmitting COVID. It reduces the risk dramatically of being hospitalized or getting very ill from COVID. And it reduces the risks dramatically of you dying from COVID. That is what the vaccine seeks to do. And I make the comparison all the time to those who wear a seatbelt. Can a seatbelt, or does wearing a seatbelt mean that you can never die in an accident? No. Does wearing a helmet on a motorcycle means that you can never die in a motorcycle crash? No. But the science suggests that it reduces your risk of serious injury and death. And that is why in our motor vehicles legislation, we have mandated that you must wear a seatbelt. If you don't do it, you get a ticket. We have mandated that you wear a helmet if you are riding a motorcycle. And that is because these are intended to keep you safer. These are intended to reduce the risks to you. And that is what we seek to do. People say you must go out and exercise. Eat healthy. Does that mean you won't die? Does that mean you won't get ill? No. But it does help you to reduce the risk of illness and to delay death. Because that's what the science tells us, and that's what it leads us to. So it is not as if we are unaccustomed to following the science. We follow the science in so many respects. All of us in this room, well, let me not speak for all of us. I certainly from time to time said, I have to exercise more, I have to change my diet. I do that because That's what the science says. That's what the doctors say I should do if I want to delay the onset of illness and delay death. It doesn't mean because I'm in the gym every day I won't die or I can't get sick. So every day we engage in activity that seeks to reduce our risks. And that's what the vaccine does. It seeks to reduce the risk. And the evidence is clear as day that those who are vaccinated have a much lower risk threshold than the unvaccinated. So I just wanted to emphasize that here in Nevis, we will again be rolling out a campaign through the Health Promotion Unit geared specifically at vaccination. We have given very clear instructions to the Director of the Health Promotion Unit that we want that campaign launched, and we want it launched immediately. The reason for that is that we do recognize that there are other efforts. COVID doesn't mean that we no longer have cancer. We no longer have the non-communicable diseases that do so much damage to us. The high blood pressure, the diabetes. But we feel that COVID represents a clear and present danger. In fact, we know that for those with comorbidities and underlying conditions such as diabetes and high blood pressure, that COVID does far more damage to them because they are already vulnerable. Their bodies are already compromised. And so we're encouraging our people to get vaccinated, and we'll be launching a massive campaign to continue that push to get our numbers up. Now some may ask, why are you always concerned about vaccination? Why you talk so much about it? I talk about it because COVID represents a clear and present danger to us, to our lives and to our livelihoods. The people of Nevis, like everywhere else, have for the past nearly 2 years been in an economic freefall. Restaurants, bars, taxi drivers, tour operators, hotels, all of them have suffered. And the government, as a consequence, has suffered in terms of its revenue. We have had to take some very difficult measures here on the island of Nevis, frozen increments, stop promotions, done all that in an effort to contain our expenditure because our revenue stream was down by over 20%. We expected that this would be a short-term effect. It has turned out that COVID has been with us for much longer than any of us anticipated. And so this year, ladies and gentlemen, represents the very first time since the onset of COVID back in March of 2020 that Nevis is looking towards, with some optimism, a tourism season. I am pleased to report that the hotel sector is indicating that they have quite robust advance bookings, that our flagship, the Four Seasons Resort, has had a good Thanksgiving, which is still ongoing. Incidentally, let me use that to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And that they anticipate that for festive, that is the Christmas season, they are likely to be back to pre-pandemic numbers. I think that that's excellent news for us. However, our people must prepare themselves to interact with guests, to be able to greet and meet everyone, that we can get rid of this bubble where cruise passengers are concerned, where we understand because of how the bubble operates, many, including the small man, doesn't benefit. We have to prepare ourselves and put ourselves in a position as a country to get this done. Getting vaccinated is not doing something for the government of the day. It is not doing something for the Premier or for the Prime Minister. It is doing something for you, your family, making it possible for you to feel safer as you go out and you get to work, to earn, to support your family. And so I can only urge and encourage at this point that our people take advantage. I'm told that the current batch of vaccines that we have expires sometime in January. And so we are optimistic, hopeful, that by the time Christmas comes around, we can once again have the activities to which we are accustomed. That people are able to go out again. The entertainment sector has been complaining, rightly so, because nothing has been happening. So if you are a bandman or you are a promoter, nothing has been happening. Long time, there hasn't been a dance or session. And so we want to get back to a sense of normalcy. And I'm sure all of you want this to the same. All of us want to get back to a sense of normalcy. And the only way we can do that is to work together. And so I encourage you again, please go out to our health centers, get vaccinated, and be part of the solution. In other news, the Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs continues to build out its nursing staff complement. We welcomed 2 new nurses from the Philippines, Ernesto Bruzo Jr. and Marbelin Cabaluna, and they have come to us via Suriname, where they worked for a while, and we're quite happy that they've joined us at the Alexandra Hospital. Let me make a further appeal to our people, particularly our young people, to take up nursing as a profession. The government continues to support financially those who wish to study nursing. We continue to get either through our own resources or scholarships. We have had, for example, some of our nurses at our hospital who have gone to Taiwan on the full scholarship procured by us to do master's programs. We have nurses even now who are outside the Federation in Jamaica and elsewhere doing master's program with assistance from the government. And we continue to support nurses who go to the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College in St. Kitts to get their nursing qualification. So it is one of those professions where you get help to go and train, and then when you come back, you're guaranteed a job. I believe that it's a noble calling, and we continue to encourage our own people to go into nursing. Too many people are sitting down saying nothing happening, nothing is there, they have nothing to do. And here we have 2 nurses all the way from Philippines. I have never been there. I don't know if you've ever been there. But they have found Alexandra Hospital from Philippines. Well, I'm sure if you're from Stony Grove or Brownhill, you could find it even easier. Just do what you need to do. Prepare yourself. The government is here to help you to prepare yourself. But you can't simply just sit back and complain. Step forward. Prepare yourself. The opportunities exist right here on the island of Nevis for our people who are minded to seize those opportunities. The Ministry of Health has recently purchased a vaccine refrigerator at a cost of some US $13,304. This vaccine refrigerator will serve as a central storage for all vaccines used at our 6 health centers and would allow us to store vaccines at the recommended temperatures to maintain their potency. We continue, as I've done before, to use the opportunity to encourage our people to get vaccinated at the health centers against COVID-19. In celebration of International Men's Month, the Department of Gender hosted a week of activities. The Department of Gender also will be launching the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence. I think all of us are aware that from time immemorial in our country and around the world, we've had gender-based violence. Men abusing their women, women abusing their men, and we are saying that it is time in an enlightened community such as Nevis that this stops. It is quite clear that it can only stop if we all engage. If when we see something, we say something. We alert someone. And we continue to be our brother's keeper and our sister's helper. Too many people are suffering in silence. Too many people are suffering where their neighbors know, their family knows, and still they do nothing. So we are saying that together, working together, we can change attitudes, we can change hearts and minds. And the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence, in fact against violence of any kind, is where we want to get to in terms of a society and a better Nevis for all. In honor of World AIDS Day, which is celebrated or commemorated on 1st of December 2021, the Health Promotion Unit will be hosting a lighting ceremony and walk. This entails a very short ceremony at the Nevis Nice sign at the Pinneys Artisan Village, and will conclude by lighting the sign in red. After that, everyone present will be given a flameless candle and will walk from the sign to the Charlestown Boat Terminal. The lighting ceremony and walk is to honor those who have lost their lives to AIDS. And we, of course, encourage all to take part and be a part of this. Let me switch very quickly, and I promise I won't be overly long today in terms of an introductory statement. Let me switch to the Ministry of Education. We are very pleased once again to have partnered with the Winsong Foundation, who donated another Toyota Coaster bus to the ministry for the use of our children as a school bus. This brings to 3 the number of buses donated by the foundation to the Nevis government in the last 12 months. I believe that that is very significant because we approach them in light of the distancing now, the physical distancing required by COVID. We approached the foundation to ask if they could assist us in replenishing our fleet of school buses so that we would have more buses and allow the buses then to take fewer children, so that the children on the buses would be a bit safer. They have responded positively. Matter of fact, we would have had all the buses already, but due to the restrictions of COVID and the difficulties with manufacturing, we had problems getting them from the manufacturer. But we now have 3 brand new school buses in the last 12 months. I would want to thank the Winsong Foundation, thank them very, very much on behalf of our children, on behalf of the Ministry of Education, on behalf of parents who now know that their children are being transported safely in a brand new vehicle to and from school. Winsong, as I said, would have assisted us in the context of our COVID-19 response, and for that we are grateful. Let me also say that the Mandarin classes that we were very pleased to announce so many months ago as an innovative step to prepare our school children to speak Mandarin, the language spoken by the world's largest community of people. Mandarin is now spoken across the world and, of course, by over 1 billion Chinese. And so we are pleased to say that, listen, we think that this is the wave of the future. This is where the world is going. And through the assistance of our dear friends and brothers, the government of Taiwan, we were able to get a Mandarin teacher here. She is now embedded with us, and it appears that the children have been going home and speaking Mandarin to their parents, and the parents are now hearing Mandarin from the children and can't understand what the children are telling them. So, the parents have now said they want to learn Mandarin too, so that they know whether little Johnny is being nice or naughty when he speaks to them in Mandarin. So, we have decided, through the Ministry of Education, that we will now expand the offering of Mandarin to the general public. So an adult Mandarin class is currently ongoing at the Department of Education on Mondays and Wednesdays from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And there are already 14 adults enrolled. I don't know if anybody in the room is enrolled, but we already have 14 adults enrolled in the Mandarin class. The class is being taught by Miss Chi Chen, who is a trained Mandarin teacher from Taiwan with years of experience in teaching Mandarin in Japan and Thailand. She came to Nevis at the end of last year to teach Mandarin in our secondary schools. So we have now extended it outwards to the general public. Quickly to sports, I would just like to take a moment to recognize 4 of our finest under-19 cricketers who are currently in Antigua to participate in trial matches, which will help to determine the final West Indies team that will take part in the Under-19 World Cup to be played in early 2022. Those 4 cricketers are no strangers to us: Justin Amadine, Onaje Amri, Jaden Carmichael, and Carlin Bowen Tuckett. The tournament will be hosted in the West Indies, with matches slated to be played in St. Kitts and Nevis as well. Amadine, Bowen Tuckett, and Amri were actually part of the West Indies Under-19 team that recently toured England. And of course, we're rooting for our boys. We wish them well. The Youth Impact 12 program, the second cycle of the Youth Impact 12 program, culminated with an award ceremony on November 4th at NEPAC under the theme Champions of Youth Work. The 9 awardees were, and I want to name them because I'm very proud of all of them: Merville Janelle Nisbet, she was awarded in Patriotism; Brendan Claxton in Education and Lifelong Learning; DeAndre Archibald in Volunteerism; Malikwa Kamu in volunteerism, Jasulesi Flanders Grant in entrepreneurship, Giovanni Tyson, sports excellence, Jevon Claxton, information technology, Shakir Stapleton, youth development, Davian Griffin, youth in the arts. 4 green ambassadors were also honored at the award ceremony. They were honored for their steadfast contributions to the department's efforts to increase awareness and generate interest in areas that relate to climate change and sustainable living. These honorees were Dylan Smitten, Nikesha Henry, Truvana Richards, and Alea Powell. I would wish to congratulate them all. When I see these names, I know that Nevis is in good hands, and Nevis will remain in good hands for the foreseeable future. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we go to St. Kitts for the special sitting of the Parliament to celebrate the 25 most remarkable teens. Those will be celebrated tonight at the Rivers of Living Water Christian Center. 3 divisions will be awarded at the special sitting of Parliament. Their identities will be revealed at that time. The ceremony, of course, will be carried live on ZIZ and starts at 6 p.m. And so we look forward then to the awardees being recognized, the 25 most remarkable teens. Let me switch gears to talk about a project that I have spoken about here time and time again, and a project that is near and dear to my heart, but also one I think that is of importance to the people of Nevis, and that is the park at Pinnis. The park at Pinnis is, as I've hitherto indicated, to be dedicated officially on the 19th of December, Sunday the 19th of December at 4:30 p.m. The general public is cordially invited to attend. The event will be streamed live from 4 p.m. and will feature cultural performances and other attractions. On-site vendor, The Game Room, will be open to provide entertainment, and Seal My Sip Juice Bar and Smoothie Lounge will offer natural fruit juices and smoothies to the general public, including something I'm told, which I love, called bubble tea from Taiwan. Movies will also be shown at the amphitheater after the opening ceremony. So just imagine, if you will, the beautiful lawns and the amphitheater, and being able to relax in the amphitheater in a natural environment and have an outdoor movie shown. We are prayerful that the weather will permit us to do all that we plan to do that evening. But I invite the public to come. I think it will be a momentous occasion, not only for the island of Nevis, but for the wider Federation. Indeed, you will recall that on the first visit by a Taiwanese president to Nevis, the visit of President Tsai, we were able to turn the sod and mark the start of construction for that project. They have delivered the project on time, and we hope that the members of the public will be pleased when you see for yourself what is there. Over the next several days, the permanent fencing along the northern and eastern perimeters of the park will be installed. The temporary fencing will be dismantled. The Public Works Department is currently doing some road works in the vicinity of the park, including a widening of the Island Main Road, and we will shortly be proceeding with new road markings and resurfacing in the area to improve the flow of traffic. We are also engaged with NEVLEC to change the orientation of the poles, the electricity poles, and so you will see a hive of activity in that area. We are asking motorists to be patient with us. We are asking the general public to be patient with us. We assure you it won't be long, because it's not a long project. It is intended to be done in time for the opening of December 19th. The park at Pinnis, some of the features: a fully air-conditioned visitor center, a children's playground, basketball court, jogging track and boardwalks, a fountain, a large outdoor stage, trails, and a lawn amphitheater, all of which are set in acres of beautifully landscaped grounds. The project cost was US $3 million. It's a collaborative effort between the Republic of China, Taiwan, and the Nevis Island Administration, and stands, and we hope will stand for many years, as a testament to the very strong bonds of friendship between our two peoples. The opening ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, will coincide with the Taiwan Trade Exposition. So this is another very exciting development, that the Taiwanese have decided at the same time to mount a trade exposition which will open also on the 19th of December in the visitor center at the park. That will run from December 19th to 22nd. The Taiwan Expo will feature goods and services offered by Taiwanese business enterprises. Now I'm appealing to you, the members of the public. We have often said that the relationship with Taiwan has been an excellent government-to-government relationship. We have, however, said to the Taiwanese that we also want to see more business links with Taiwan. And there are a number of products that are produced in Taiwan that we feel our local business persons can get involved with. The idea behind this trade fair is for Taiwanese to come here and to make linkages with business persons here as to products, goods, and services. And we're hopeful that we'll get two-way trade. What I mean by that is they send something to us that we need, computers, laptops. They're very popular globally, very well known for those things, electronics. And we're able to send them products as well. For example, they've asked me about local rum. They've asked me about peppers and pepper sauce and things of that nature. Things that would be a delicacy there. Those in the fishing community, they've asked about lobsters and conch. So there are opportunities here, and the idea is that those of us who are into business, whether we're in it already or we want to get into it, we're inviting you to come to the trade fair and to engage with our Taiwanese brothers and sisters and to see what linkages can be made. Many of us are selling products that we get from elsewhere. We're asking you to come and have a look and see whether or not the Taiwanese products will be a good alternative for you. Let me also announce that we will be having a Christmas night market. Very excited about that. Nevis introduced this concept of night market, and it has been going well thus far. The Ministry of Tourism will host that night market at the Artisan Village on Saturday, the 11th December from 6 p.m. A wide variety of local arts and crafts and other made-in-Nevis items will be on sale, and a well-stocked bar and food court will cater to the many patrons expected. There will also be a domino competition at the night market, as well as some live entertainment. We crave the overwhelming support of the general public. We did the last one in April, and it was very, very popular. Ladies and gentlemen, let me end. I did promise I wouldn't be too long. I hope I've not broken my promise, but let me just end by saying one last thing. And that is that just about 2 weeks ago, the island of Nevis welcomed the arrival of another brand new Wärtsilä engine generating set at Nevlec. It's a 3.8 megawatt generating set, and it complements the other 3.8 megawatt generating set that we had bought just about 3 years prior. It would mean that in the last 5 years, this government has invested significantly in stabilizing our power grid. Now, I recognize that some have asked the question, what does this mean for renewable energy? I answer you this way, that whilst we wait on renewable energy to come, and whilst we know that renewable energy has to be our future, we cannot afford to allow the island to go into darkness. And so this investment was deemed to be a necessary investment to stabilize our grid and to ensure, especially now as we go into the Christmas season, when the island is expected to be full of guests, especially as we see a boom in construction across the island and new homes, new businesses springing up, and the demand for electricity growing, that we could not afford any outages or blackouts across the island. And to put it in perspective for you, the people at Nevlec complained that they were unable sometimes to meet the scheduled servicing of some of the engines, because whenever they took out one of the larger engines, some of the island had to go in darkness. And that is why you would often see the releases saying there will be a planned outage in this place or planned outage in that place. Now, we are not saying that it means that there will never be outages. What we are saying is that this investment in brand new technology, the Wärtsilä engines, which are better in terms of consumption of fuel, and we expect therefore to save some money on how much we are paying Delta Petroleum for fuel every month. All of those things come together as the government seeks to ensure that our people are made more comfortable. So while we have heard the debate and some who have pronounced the untimely death of the geothermal project and renewable energy, I want to be very clear that we continue to press full steam ahead with getting Nevis to a point where we can offer 100% renewable energy. But if that were to take another 18 months, for example, we couldn't afford the island suffering blackouts during that period. And that is why we have made the investment. We have also been told by the experts that even when renewable energy comes, that if ever that renewable energy goes offline, the engines, diesel engines, are necessary as a backup. So the investment is not a wasted investment. The investment is a necessary investment. And I believe that Nevisians should feel a sense of comfort that the government continues to seek to ensure that they are comfortable as we continue to do the very best that we can and put our people first. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the updates that I would want to give. I would open the floor to questions and comments from members of the media. And I've kept my part of the bargain, I've kept it short. So let's see what questions you have and whether or not I can keep my answers short and to the point as well.
Good day, Mr. Premier.
Good day to you.
Shamika Bajin, Von Radio. Can you give a report as to the fire incident that occurred at Paradiso yesterday afternoon? We have seen recently the price increase in our supermarkets, and we have reports of persons in the public complaining. What is the government, or in this case the Department of Consumer Affairs, doing about this? Also, does this increase have to do with the effects of COVID-19? Can you give an update on the new wing at the Alexandra Hospital? And my final question, Mr. Brantley, you mentioned this morning the purchase of a vaccine refrigerator. So does this mean that we would be able to source other vaccines, such as Moderna or Johnson & Johnson? That's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. Let me start where you ended. Does it mean we'll source other vaccines? Of course, other vaccines are available, but we have to find the money to pay for them. And the question that I would ask rhetorically is, do we source other vaccines just for the sake of sourcing other vaccines? Because if we have Pfizer, which is FDA approved and is now the most widely used vaccine in the United States, that is available to us for free, should we go out to source Moderna and Johnson & Johnson when our people are not taking the Pfizer? You will recall that when we only had AstraZeneca, some people say, I want a choice. And so we went and we got the Pfizer vaccine through our diplomatic efforts with the United States. The Pfizer is now here, it's available. So the argument that we must go and get Johnson & Johnson, and we must go and get Moderna, and we must go and get, because there are many, Sinopharm, for example, I think is a Chinese vaccine, also has been approved by the WHO. Do we get them all? And the question will be, to what end? We have initially the AstraZeneca, now we have the Pfizer. They are effective, and we would urge our people to get the vaccine that is available. As I heard one expert put it, the best vaccine is the one that's available. So let us do that rather than waiting any further. We had heard in the public square some argument by some that didn't want to take AstraZeneca, so they would wait for something else. And I have seen others now. We take, and I could say it because it was said publicly, the leader of the opposition federally, former Prime Minister Dr. Douglas, for example, he had said that he was uncomfortable taking the AstraZeneca, but he has since taken the Pfizer. So I think that's what we need to do, to encourage our people to take the vaccine that's available, knowing that these are approved vaccines both at the WHO level, and in the case of Pfizer, it is now approved by the FDA for those who are 12 years and over. So we are not offering a vaccine here that is substandard in any way. We are offering the same vaccine that others in developed countries are being offered. And in this case, the Pfizer vaccine. So whilst vaccines are available, other brands, we are not in the business now of going out to try to get other brands, because we have, we think, an effective brand here that we're asking our people to take advantage of. The update of renewing at the hospital, I'm pleased to say that work has restarted. I think the last time I was here, I had indicated that we were still waiting for the final reconfiguration that was being done. That has now been done and work has restarted. The contractors, I'm told, are on site. We will pay a site visit next week, Tuesday, there, the cabinet, and so we will get a first-hand update from the hospital staff and the technical team there and the contractors there. But the work has restarted, and we, as I've indicated before, anticipate that this project will be completed in 2022. That is the intention at this point. Price increases at the supermarkets, believe me, I understand. They impact all of us, but they are part of a global increase in prices because COVID-19 has impacted the logistics, it has impacted transportation, it has impacted, I mean, in the UK, for example, I've seen that prices are soaring because something that you might consider simple, getting lorry drivers who move goods around the UK, that they are in scarce supply. So COVID has disrupted the supply chains around the world. And as a result of that, food shortages are developing and scarcity is developing. And it's not only in food. In all commodities, if you're building a home now, you will, for example, recognize that the cost has gone up of lumber, the cost of steel, the cost of everything has gone up because they're now telling you it's more expensive to ship. And the lag time is also longer. So if you order something now, if it used to take 6 weeks, maybe now it's 10 weeks before you can get it. So that's a very real concern. In terms of our Consumer Affairs Department, I really don't think that there's anything they can do. And I'm being very honest with you. This is a global phenomenon. And it's nothing that we can do as a government to say, how do you reduce world prices? We don't have that ability to do that here. And we obviously do consume food and products that come from overseas, and therefore, to a large extent, their price is fixed by the overseas suppliers as they come into us. What I can say in relation to food is that the primary response of this government to the COVID crisis was to emphasize food security. The largest amount of money that we spent next to health in terms of our preparedness was in relation to agriculture. We put forward an unprecedented stimulus package for agriculture. Free seeds, free seedlings, free fertilizer, free land preparation, free fencing wire to secure your land. We provided the expertise of our agricultural workers for free to our farmers. We lowered the cost at the abattoir. We provided free feed to our animal farmers. We provided fish pot wire. First roll, I think, was free. Second roll, 50% off. So our fisher folk, our animal farmers, and our crop farmers, we, in fact, provided shade houses for free to several of our young farmers here who are involved using that technology. And if you drive around Nevis, you see farms are popping up. If you go right above there, just below Hosford's on the Island Main Road, there's a major production facility that has been created. It wasn't there before. Created since this COVID-19 pandemic. You go up on the hill and farms, you see another one. You go into Prospect, you see another one. Mackie Trust continues at A1 Farms to expand. You have young or maybe middle-aged Danny Atherton expanding his production as well. So we're using technology in addition to the traditional farming. And we did something unprecedented. We extended these concessions to the backyard farmer. So we said if you were doing a little farming in your backyard or you had a little piece of land next to you, you were not a commercial farmer. But because of COVID, you're not working, you're locked down, whatever the case may be, you're doing some farming, growing some crops. We also extended concessions to you. Free water. All of that was done. Now, the part of that puzzle that needs also to be solved is that you and I must buy what the farmers produce. And I believe that that is the best way that we can seek to control the cost of food. Mind you, we're not producing all the commodities that we consume. I accept that. If you want grapes and you want maybe the apples that come out of the United States and some of those things, you're not going to get them here. We appreciate that. But for our staples and the majority of what we consume, we feel that if we support our local farmers, we get a better product, we get a cheaper product, we get a product that is grown organically and is far better for our health. When we eat imported food out of those containers that come from Miami, we have no idea what's in them. And that's the truth. No idea. So in the budget that we are going to have coming on the 7th, you will hear us talk, for example, about a broiler industry. You have heard talk about it before, but we are now at the stage of implementation, where you will have chicken being produced here locally. You may know that chicken is the most popular meat kind in Nevis. I would have thought it would be fish because we're surrounded by ocean. But fish is in fact more expensive than chicken. So chicken is consumed in large quantities. And we feel that it is an industry that is begging to be developed. And we have had now, the necessary investors have stepped forward. And we hope to inaugurate that very shortly. Again, what we're doing is seeking to ensure enhanced food security. So it's not a complete answer to your question, but I think it partially answers the issue of increasing food prices if we decide to buy more local food, consume more local food, and support our local farmers. Then we have more control over pricing than we would for food that is coming out of the United States and elsewhere, over which we have absolutely no control. So that is as much as I could say on that. Last question, Paradise Beach. A very tragic fire that occurred there yesterday. I saw the videos and the photos that were circulating. The good news is that the fire was contained to a small structure which acted as the kitchen, bar, and restaurant. It was all sort of open air. If you've been there, it's the structure that is closest to the ocean. That structure was unfortunately completely destroyed. However, the good news, nobody was hurt. Everybody's safe. The further good news is that the fire never got to any of the villas or any of the accommodation. So really the fire was isolated to a single small building that has been destroyed. And they will now have to reconstruct that building. And as I've said to them, I visited them this morning, they have to build back better. And it's as simple as that. So it is a sad occurrence, but these things will happen. You know what they say about fire, it's an excellent servant, but a terrible master. And so it perhaps is a wake-up call to all of us who are cooking in our homes and whatever we're doing, to always be careful that that stove is turned off, that oven is turned off, and that we don't play around with fire. Our children, our parents always used to tell us as little children, don't play with fire. And so, unfortunate occurrence, but we have pledged our fullest support to the owners to get this property back up and to full potential. It is particularly sad because they're predicting a robust Christmas season. They have a lot of bookings, so this has come at a bad time. But we hope that we can work through it, and we have assured them of our partnership and assistance. But there's no alarm, nobody was hurt, which is most important, and none of the rest of the property was damaged at all. So we're fortunate that it's just a small building that was destroyed. Any other questions for me, ladies and gentlemen?
Good morning. Monique Washington, St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper.
Good morning, Monique.
Earlier this year, you announced that no work permits or renewal of residencies will be issued unless the applicants are vaccinated against COVID-19. What has been the response to this so far? And what will happen or what has happened to those who refuse to take the job? Now, when you were speaking about NEVLEC, you also mentioned a little bit about geothermal. But I'm asking more for an update. Has the funds to conduct the geothermal project been secured as yet? And is there any date as to when drilling might start? And you also mentioned about vaccinations and the numbers in St. Kitts and the numbers in Nevis, and you continue to encourage and you continue to urge persons to go out and get vaccinated. But encouraging and urging at this point of time doesn't really seem to be working. So has your administration considered giving incentives to persons such as money or food or even a job to encourage them to go out and get vaccinated? And the last question, can we get an update on the West Haven property? Thank you.
Monique, as always, you ask thought-provoking questions. The one that stands out to me is if I must give people food, job, and money to get vaccinated. And I ask myself, why must you pay people to do the right thing? We ask it all the time. Why must you pay people to do the right thing? Why must you pay somebody to go out and take something that is going to save them from COVID, that is going to give them protection from COVID? We've seen it attempted in other countries. I have not heard that any of those attempts has been particularly successful. In fact, in Antigua, I heard they were trying to give land, and I don't know if that has been particularly successful. The reality is that people believe what they believe, and we continue to encourage our people. I thought when you asked the question that you were going to ask me if we were going to get to a mandate. I thought that's where you were headed. And my answer to that is, as I said before, that I am not against the mandate. We have not yet got to the point where we feel that that is necessary. But certainly, if those people in the minority continue to refuse to vaccinate to the point where it jeopardizes our ability to reopen fully and get our economy going again. Because that's the, how should I put it, that's the conundrum in which we find ourselves. Somebody will call me as Premier, a youngster, and say, Mr. Brantley, I need a job, I need something to do. I said, okay. Have you taken the job? No, I'm not taking any vaccine. Okay. A lot of the jobs now are saying that this is something that they require. So, in not taking the job, that youngster is in effect excluding himself from some kinds of work that might be available. And I said it publicly the other day. I said, now again, I had a situation recently where a youngster had been badgering me for some time. We know work has been difficult to find. I found him 2 jobs, 2 different employers. And each said they needed the person to be vaccinated because the person will have a frontline position. They will be engaging with people on the front line. And the youngster turned down both jobs. He called me. He said things were bad with him. He had his child to support. Things were tough. And I sought and called around, and 2 business places were prepared to hire. He turned down both. So he now take no vaccine. No reason, he just now take none. So I want our people to understand that there's a connection. There's a nexus. Because I'm persuaded that that same youngster will then say, nothing now happened for him. He can't find a job. But 2 jobs were made available to him, and he turned down both because he refuses to take a vaccine. So, Monique, it is a difficult situation. I believe, and I continue to appeal to our people, at the end of the day, each of us has to take personal responsibility. And if you know, I mentioned it the other day, I will say it again. Speaking to a group of people, because I've been going out in the community and trying to persuade people one-on-one, sitting down on the block talking to the guys, encouraging them. Now take the vaccine, now take the vaccine. The minute President Biden said, you must get the vaccine if you want to come to America, some of them rush said they're not going to take it. But when you step back and you reflect, why should it depend on what President Biden in America is saying? So, you're here. Are you not interested in protecting yourself and your family? Are you not interested in getting back to work? You're not taking a vaccine. The minute Biden said, if you want to come USVI, you want to come Puerto Rico, and you want to come America, you must be vaccinated. You start to think about Carnival in Miami and jumping up for Labor Day in Brooklyn. And you say, boy, let me go and take the vaccine quick. So what do? We continue to encourage our people. The government doesn't have any money to pay anybody to vaccinate, and we don't have any jobs to give anybody to vaccinate. What we are saying to you, however, there are jobs now available again in the economy. People are hiring again. The hotels are hiring. The restaurants are hiring. Construction right now is booming on the island of Nevis. I reported the last time I was here that there were 163 active construction sites currently on Nevis. 163. So people are once again working, but you must prepare yourself. Nobody's going to hold your hand now and cuddle you. You must prepare yourself. And if there are opportunities out there, take advantage of the opportunities. Don't sit back. Take advantage. And so I encourage our people again to vaccinate. Work permit residences, people being vaccinated to get them, I'm told it's working beautifully. And that we have not had any problems in that regard. Those who wish to come here to work, come here for residency, they are required to vaccinate, and that has gone well because they've seen the wisdom in doing that. Nevlec, geothermal, you want some detailed information as to whether the funds have been secured, when drilling will start. I'm going to delay that money. The reason I'm going to delay that is because I'm told that the developers will be on island in another 2 weeks to finalize all arrangements. And I know that they will have something to say to the press then. So I prefer that they do it at that point when we have everything documented and ready to go. So if you'll forgive me, I am not ducking the question, I am simply deferring and saying that I would prefer them that they do that when they are on island. The company that we're having a conversation with is a French company called Albioma, which is a publicly traded company in France. So we're having some very interesting discussions with others as well. In fact, the permanent secretary and I would have taken a one-day trip to have a conversation with some individuals who are interested in taking power from geothermal once we can produce the energy. And we think that those conversations went well. We're going to follow up with them in January. But in terms of the specifics that you've asked for, the developers are going to be on island shortly, and we'll have something to say to the press when they come. Resthaven. Resthaven, Monique, is a problem. If you knew me a few years ago, you would know that my beard was still relatively dark in terms of color. It is issues such as Resthaven that have turned me white and gray because it's a problem. And it's a symptom of a larger problem that we have created here on the island of Nevis. Between 2006 and 2013, the NRP-led administration went around this island and compulsorily acquired some 14 different parcels of land from various Nevisian landowners, one of which was the Resthaven lands, where the old abandoned Resthaven Hotel used to be. They paid for none. Now the law is clear that a government can acquire lands from any individual compulsorily if necessary, but it has to be for public purpose, one, and two, you have to pay compensation. They acquired lands, they paid nothing to any of these individuals. 14 different landowners. When we got into office in 2013, we met this problem. And so, we have tried. You know what we did, Monique? We gave back some of the people their land. We begged them to take it back. You had to beg them, you know why? The way the law is framed, once the acquisition is published in the newspaper, the land vests in the government. So basically, once the government has exercised the right to compulsorily acquire, the land at that point, even before any compensation is paid, vests in the government. So we beg some of them, please take back your land, because we don't have any money to pay for it. Resthaven is one of those that we have been wrestling with, because the valuations that were done there, coupled with all the interest that has gone on over the years, because Resthaven, I believe, was compulsorily taken sometime in 2008, if memory serves. This is now 2021. So a number of years have gone by, and with all the interest, those 2 acres of land, 2-point-something acres of land at Resthaven, is almost $30 million that we have to find to pay for those 2 acres of land with abandoned property on them that you're going to have to knock down. It's the most expensive piece of real estate in the history of this island called Nevis. And you and I, and everybody in this room, and all of those Nivision taxpayers out there who are listening, are now saddled with that bill. What have we done? We have been meeting with the lawyers and the owners, the previous owners that is, because the government now owns it, for Rest Haven. We have been having conversations because clearly we don't have that money to pay. So we have been seeking to work out various mechanisms of how we can come to some kind of compromise and to pay the folks their money and to clear away that debt. So we have, the last time we have made a written proposal to the lawyers, and we are waiting a response from them as to how we'll be able to liquidate that tremendous debt that we now face for that 2+ acres of property right there at Rest Haven. I have given the history because I think it is important sometimes that our people have context when they look at problems and seek to determine how we move forward. So that is where we are in relation to Rest Haven. We are optimistic that as part of that solution, we can have a development there at that property again. As it was before, as you know, it was one of our prime resorts, hotels back in the day. You might be too young to remember it, Monique, but it was a very top property back in the day. Has been in disuse, in fact, since, was it Hurricane Hugo? I think it was Hurricane Hugo since 1989. And has been left abandoned since that time. And the government of the day then, in its wisdom, decided the best thing they could do is to compulsorily acquire it. And we have that debt that is still hanging over our heads that we are negotiating with the owners. And I must say, because I'm discussing this publicly, that the owners, in my view, have shown very good faith and restraint with this government thus far. And we are working with them to find a resolution. We are now awaiting word from them, that's the last I was told, in relation to our latest offer to settle this matter.
Okay. Couple months ago, the government would have cleaned that said piece of land to make it, I guess, more attractive to investors. So no investors have showed interest in that piece of land. And then the last question from me is your salary. Have you begun receiving your salary as yet?
We cleared the land, not really, it wasn't about investors. We cleared it because it had become an eyesore and it had become a health issue because we were concerned, and a security issue, that people could be hiding out in those buildings and in all the overgrown bush and thing you had there. We were also concerned about rodents that tend to fester in that kind of environment. And so the primary reason really was to remove some of what looked like an eyesore and to at least clear it away. And we propose from time to time to keep it clear rather than to have it overgrown and unsightly. Investors, we have had at least 2 investors that have shown interest in that property. I can't name them because other than showing interest, we have not had anything concrete from them. We did have one investor that had proposed to do there a small marina and a development of shops and offices, which we supported, but that has not materialized as yet. And that investor, in fact, had paid down a very small sum to sort of secure first right of refusal, so to speak, on that property. The time has now lapsed, and that has not yet moved forward. So if anybody out there is interested, we are still very interested in a partner. As I said, it's the most expensive real estate in the world. Maybe not in the world. I don't think beyond Manhattan you'll find anything as expensive as that, because it's almost now $15 million an acre that we are being forced to pay for that property, with interest accumulated now onto the debt. And so it is for us a real headache and something that we're trying to resolve. But I assure you that we continue to make best efforts to resolve it. And this is just part of the legacy, part of what we inherited. Governments is a continuum. You inherit good and you inherit bad. If you inherit a road that is done, you get the benefit of that road. But also you inherit things such as this which have really been a millstone around our necks as we've tried to find a resolution for it. Good news again, we feel that we are on a path now to resolve it, and we're optimistic that that can happen. My salary, sorry, I'm happy that you've reminded me because I haven't taken a salary as yet. I did say, in fact, I went back to look at my public pronouncement on this. At the time, I confessed, Monique, that I had not anticipated that COVID would still be with us. So unlike my colleagues who said quite properly that they would take a salary cut for a particular time frame, I said I would take it until we had the all clear from COVID, because I did not anticipate that we would have COVID now going on 2 years. So I have not had a salary from the new side administration since March of last year. So it's really now been, that looks about 20 months or so, and I'm not. So I'm looking at next year and hopeful that if we can reopen properly, then maybe at that point I'll be able to get a salary back. But at this point the answer is no. I have still not taken a salary since March of last year.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Elke Hewlett, Department of Information. I know you said that the existing batches of vaccines are set to expire in January. Would that be the Oxford AstraZeneca or the Pfizer? And in that case, can persons mix doses of vaccines? Also, we heard a collective rejoice recently with the lifting of the curfew, the COVID-19 curfew. However, as people say, nothing keeping still, because other restrictions are still in place. So the bar owners, the restaurant owners are saying it doesn't make sense to open late, you can't have a little dance, you can't have a little noise and what's not, and still restrictions on gatherings. So are we going to see any ease to those restrictions to coincide with the curfew? Also, farmers that I've heard have been complaining that the solid waste fee that is now attached to the water bill is causing a problem for them because they are not using solid waste services. They have no garbage to collect, yet they have to pay every month on top of their other expenses. So is there any mechanism that can be put in place that would see persons who have no use of solid waste services not having to pay the solid waste fee every month?
Ms. Hewlett, thank you for your questions. As I understand it, what expires in January 22nd will be the Pfizer vaccines that we got. Remember, we were supposed to get 3 batches of Pfizer. The first one, I think, was 11,100 doses or something like that. We got that, and those expire in January. We expect 2 other batches of the same amount to come from the U.S. government. That was the commitment to us, was 33 or 34,000 doses total. So we are still in good shape insofar as vaccines are concerned. I'm not aware that we have any AstraZeneca vaccines that are still being offered at this point. I think the Pfizer vaccine is what we have moved to, because those AstraZeneca that we had, I believe, would have been used up at this point. I don't know that we're still giving AstraZeneca.
I was asked last week which one.
Well, if you're being asked which one, then perhaps there's information that I'm not aware of. I was told that the Pfizer vaccine was now the vaccine that we had. The AstraZeneca vaccines that we did have, I gathered that those were being held back as second shots for those who had had a first shot. So that was my understanding. Perhaps my information is not up to date. Either way, the vaccines that we have, we are using. In terms of mixing doses, I don't believe that we have had a clear indication as yet from our health authorities as to the best approach. We have had, however, a lot of evidence coming from other countries in Europe. Germany, for example, they've been mixing doses. And there's some suggestion that it actually works better. In fact, many people who have had the AstraZeneca are now going for the Pfizer for a booster shot. And that is apparently well accepted and quite efficacious. So it doesn't appear to be a problem with the mixing of the vaccines at all. The lifting of the curfew was part of the gradual reopening of the country. As you realize, we have moved, for example, from 14-day quarantine to 9 to 4, now to 24 hours. And we anticipate that the quarantine will be gone very soon altogether for those who are fully vaxxed and enter with a negative COVID test, PCR test. It has been a gradual process. The Prime Minister has made it clear what the Cabinet's leaning currently appears to be, and that is that we're very close to an 80% threshold nationally for vaccination. And once we get to that 80%, the technical team, the professionals are saying to us that we can really loosen the reins a bit more. And so the expectation is once we hit 80%, we'll be able to, for example, open up the area more in terms of the bars and restaurants, have the music, you say, make sure something a keep. I believe that is what the local expression is. And to move in that direction, have the sporting events, have the entertainment back. In fact, I believe the Minister of Entertainment in St. Kitts might be having a press conference, if it isn't today, sometime shortly, to lay out what the reopening of the entertainment sector will look like. So the bottom line is I think that we have agreed and accepted that we have to live with COVID. What we want to do, however, is to balance the situation so we don't have a relapse to the days when we were seeing hundreds of cases. Right now, I think the COVID situation is firmly in hand and under control, and we want to keep it that way. So that is where we are at this point. So we expect a further gradual relaxation as we move forward. The farmers, we are aware of the problem. As you know, we would have shifted the water bill from electricity to I'm sorry, forgive me, the solid waste bill from electricity to the water department. We thought that we would get greater coverage doing it that way. I understand and hear the argument that we're not using it and therefore we shouldn't have to pay. First of all, the cost is nominal, relatively speaking. Second of all is that I don't know, people say they don't use solid waste. Because at the farm sometimes you have waste. If you clear down trees and all that, you still might put it there for solid waste to take away. It may not be as regular as a household user, but you may still use it. Third, I always compare it to Social Security. Nobody in this room is collecting Social Security, but all of us pay Social Security. I say that to say this, that oftentimes we ought not to look at a tax or impost or rate on the basis of am I getting the service, because you're paying and therefore benefiting from the service that the island gets as a whole. Farmers live on Nevis, just like everybody else. And a clean Nevis and a healthy Nevis benefits them just like it benefits everybody else. If we had a system which said only if you use solid waste, you pay, and that would be a very difficult system to manage. Because, for example, I would say, I wasn't home, I was in New York for the month, so I'm not paying nothing this month. Yeah? Nobody was in the house, so we're not paying this month. Or, I didn't put out any trash this month, so I'm not paying this month. So the idea that it is a user fee isn't accurate, because it's not. It's applied across the board, but this is the cost. Some people, for example, get their garbage picked up 3 days a week. Some get it picked up only twice. So if it's a user fee and it's treated as such, those who get 3 days should pay more than those who get it twice. And those who might only get it once because they live in a remote area should pay even less. So we have to look at this and see from a policy point of view that this is really designed to improve the situation at solid waste and improve the ability of solid waste to function financially. And that is really what we're seeking to do. But having said all that, the farmers have been quite strong. The reason why we are looking at the farmers and seeking a solution for them is because we want the farmers' lives to be easier, because we want them to produce food. And going back to what I said, that our primary response was food security, the farmers need to be on side with that. So the government is working with the farmers and we'll work with them. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to explain that across the board, solid waste fees are not a user fee. In fact, in St. Kitts, as I understand it, they don't charge a fee to the homeowners. You know who paying the fee in St. Kitts? When the cruise passengers come, they pay some fee, and that is what goes to solid waste. So there's no correlation whatsoever between user and the service. At the end of the day, a cleaner, healthier Nevis benefits the farmer, the carpenter, the lawyer, the doctor, the teacher, the nurse. It benefits all of us. Our children, our elderly, it benefits all of us. And that is why we pay the solid waste fee, to allow solid waste to function, to ensure they have proper trucks to come and pick up your garbage, to pay their workers, etc. That is why we charge the fee. But the farmers are in a unique position, and we will look at them accordingly. Any other questions for me?
Just to follow up, Mr. Premier, is there going to be a rollout of booster shots, and do we have enough vaccines for that to be available? And also, what's the progress on vaccination for children 12 to 17?
I am not aware that there will be any rollout of booster shots. We have said that booster shots are available for those who are most vulnerable, those 65 and over, and those who have underlying conditions. Those have been the two categories. If your doctor were to prescribe that you get a booster, then I see no difficulty. We have vaccines and we can give the booster in those circumstances. But I don't know that there has been an official drive to get people to take the booster shot. And part of that is that some of us, and I am included in that number, have a bit of a difficulty with allowing one person now to get 3 shots, and there's some people out there who still haven't had one. Now, some may argue, well, you haven't had one because you refuse to go. I understand that. But if there are people out there who are still undecided, and who next week decide, you know what, I'm going to go, I think it'll be tough to tell them, I'm sorry, but we gave Miss Hewlett a 3rd shot, so the one that we had for you, you can't get it, you have to wait. It's like the analogy I've used is, you know, when you try to spread tertiary education and you have one person who has a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD, and wants the government to assist with each of those degrees, and you say, well, do you get value, or would it be better to spend your money to make 3 people at the bachelor's level? These are some of the issues sometimes that governments confront. As far as I'm aware, the booster shot is available, but if you speak to your doctor and your doctor determines you should have it, or if you fall into the category of 65 and over, or someone with underlying conditions, we are recommending that you go and have it. But I'm not aware that there's any huge campaign. The campaign among the 12-year-olds and over, that is part of what I said earlier, that the Health Promotion Unit is working on. We're going to be launching a massive campaign shortly to promote vaccination and to get more of our people vaccinated. So that is the effort, and I'm sure you'll see something very soon from the good people at the Health Promotion Unit. Are there any more questions for me, ladies and gentlemen?
Good morning, everyone. Beyond Mr. Hanley of BHC Media.
Good morning, Mr. Hanley.
Question number 1. Mr. Brantley, you mentioned that we are now teaching Chinese language Mandarin in our schools. Currently, we teach French, Spanish, English, which are all European languages. There are over 2,000 African languages. We do not teach any. However, St. Kitts and Nevis is 98% Black African, which is the largest African ethnicity outside of Africa. But we do not teach any African languages. What is the reason for this? I am also seeing there is a robust relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis and Taiwan. However, I am not seeing that level of passion when it comes to Africa, and there are 54 countries in Africa. Is there also a reason for this? Question number 2, can you let us know how many students left school in 2020 and 2021, and how many are currently seeking employment? Question number 3, since 2015, the federal government provided over $371 million to the Nevis Island administration. Can you let us know where that money was spent? Question number 4. Mr. Premier, you know that booster shots are now being administered to fully vaccinated persons. We know that you are fully vaccinated. So will you be taking a booster shot in short order? Question number 5. Can you let us know the unemployment rate on Nevis And also, can you let us know how many teen mothers are in Nevis? Thank you.
Mr. Hanley, you've asked me some questions which require me to have access to hand of certain statistics that I do not have. And so I start with an apology. I can get you the unemployment rate. I can get you the teen mothers who are pregnant. And I can get you the students that left school in 2020-21 and connect that with employment so that you can know how many might still be looking for work. But I would be misleading you and the public if I said I had that information with me right now. I do not. While I do not have a rate for unemployment, what I can say is that it is no secret that many people have been out of work due to COVID. The majority of our people outside government are employed in the tourism sector, and the tourism sector was practically shut down. So we can anticipate that quite a few of our workers were not doing anything. And that is why I commented at the start on how pleased we were that the tourism sector is now showing signs of life, because we expect that people now are going to be going back to work. In fact, anecdotally, I was at a particular place in my constituency of St. John's and speaking with 2 Four Seasons workers there. And they shared with me that many of their colleagues were not going back to the Four Seasons, that they were called by the Four Seasons and have decided that they would not return there because they had found work elsewhere, or some of them had started their own little business that was doing well, and so they were opting not to. In fact, these 2, I thought it was a little funny because they said they will have to work harder because some of the seasoned veterans were no longer coming back, so they'll have some youngsters with them. So I say that to say that even though that's anecdotal, that it appears that what is happening is that the jobs are once again opening up. With Four Seasons at capacity for Christmas, they're going to need, of course, their full complement of staff. And so I would expect fully another few hundred people to be on the payroll there in short order. So, Mr. Hanley, I will ask your forgiveness. I will try to get you these numbers. P.S. please make a note, and we will try and get these numbers to you that you've asked for. That is unemployment rate, teen mothers in Nevis, students, number of students that left school in 2020 and 2021 who are seeking employment. Mandarin in our schools, you say 2,000 African languages, why are none of them being taught? And you also asked me about the relationship with Africa. You say we have a good relationship with Taiwan, why not Africa? You're not seeing the passion. I think those are excellent questions, the answers to which I think lie in part in our history. Because whilst you're absolutely correct that 90+% of our population throughout the Caribbean, not just in St. Nevis, are from the African continent and can trace our roots to Africa, the truth is that we have for a very long time been separated from Africa, not just physically, but consider for a moment, Mr. Hanley, that there is no way you can get to Africa from the Caribbean. No plane, no boat. If you want to go to Africa now, make sure you have to go through the US or the UK, some other country. But you would have thought it logical that since we are part of the 6th region of Africa, the diaspora, that there would be interconnectivity between the Caribbean and Africa. It doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist, I think, in large measure because of how the colonial construct was erected. We speak English as our language. I don't know that English was necessarily our native tongue, but we speak it because that was the colonial construct. The colonial master was England, and we were forced to speak English. Even within Africa, there are many countries which are African countries which do not speak any African language as their official language. If you went to a country like Senegal, for example, you better be able to speak French. If you go to some place like Rwanda, you have to be able to speak French. If you go to, I think it's Mozambique, you must speak Portuguese. Yeah? So there is that aspect of it as well, that even within Africa, the colonial construct was such that some of those countries speak European languages, which are the languages of the colonizer. I don't say that by way of an excuse, I say that by way of history, because that has been our history. So, in the context of our education system, and trying to prepare our children for the world, the question is, what languages do you expose them to? 2,000 languages in Africa, according to you, and I don't doubt that that might be correct. Would it be of benefit to our children to be taught an African language? When the question that naturally would arise is, where will they use this African language? In what context? If you say you teach them Mandarin, we do a robust trade with China, with Taiwan, etc. Asian belt and those countries. So you could say, well, if I'm fluent in Mandarin, I could be of use and utility, enhance my resume so that I can work in some big firm that is involved with cross-border trade. What is the trade that we're doing with Rwanda, Mozambique? What is the trade that we're doing with Senegal or Morocco? So the issue is that it is not just a question of just saying because of sentimentality or because of our emotion and the emotive ties that we have to our mother Africa. Shall we just teach these languages in the school? Because at the end of the day, children, and I'm a good example. At one point I knew fairly good French. Did French at O levels, did well. Did Spanish at O levels, did well. Can't speak a lick of it now. Why? Because language is something that if you don't practice it, if you don't engage with it, after a while you lose it. It's not going to stay with you. So those are some of the practical and historical reasons, I think, why you don't see it here. Because the average person in St. Kitts Nevis, indeed the average person in the Caribbean, if I were to speculate, Mr. Hanley, has never even thought about going to Africa. You go downtown and you ask the average youngster, where you want to go? They want to see New York. They want to go to LA. They want to go to London. How many of them will tell you, I want to go to Cape Town? I want to go to Equatorial Guinea. In fact, going to the second part of your question when you say about the passion. As Foreign Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, I have really worked hard to inject some passion. That's why I'm a little disappointed you haven't seen it, because I've spoken of Africa, and I've spoken of a closer nexus with Africa. I have visited Africa for the first time in my life as an older man now. I went to Africa for the first time. I don't go to America a million times. Again, that's our experience, that's our lived experience. But I went to Africa, and we have developed not only diplomatic relations with African countries, but we've also developed visa waiver arrangements with many African countries. Sierra Leone, I could think of, Rwanda. We've done so with Senegal. We've done so with Zambia, the Gambia, and all of these. Burkina Faso. I was just in Serbia, where I signed the Burkina Faso with Gabon, and these various countries. And Mr. Hanley, I'm sure, because you are in the media, you know what the response of our people has been? We here go with them country there. Nobody want to go them place there. That has been the response. So, again, even where the effort is being made, the response from our public has often been one of derision and, you know, Equatorial Guinea, nobody know about them place there. That has been the sort of sentiment that you get. So I think that really before we get to the point where we can really talk about teaching African languages in our schools, we have to start to think about linkages with Africa. We have to start to think about how we bring that continent closer. And I was very pleased that in that context, the African Union and the 54 countries that you mentioned, which are part of the African Union, recently would have had their very first summit with CARICOM. It was chaired by President Uhuru of Kenya and I think that it went very well in terms of an early first step to better cementing relations. CARICOM has been talking, for example, about opening an embassy in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, where the European Union is, the African Union, forgive me, is based. And the idea really would be that we can get closer to Africa in terms of cultural exchanges and that kind of thing. I will say one last thing, and that is that a lot of the relationships we've had in terms of our international relations have really been based on countries that have been able to come and to assist, provide scholarships, build a park at Penny's, provide resources to us in difficult times, etc. And a lot of African countries are in a similar situation to us in terms of their stage of development. That while they have vast resources, oftentimes they are exporter of raw materials. And the value added is really earned elsewhere. For example, they would export raw diamonds. But the big money in the diamond industry is being probably earned in Antwerp or somewhere where they're processing the diamonds. So a lot of times in terms of your developmental index, and you look at those indices that the world would from time to time publish, the United Nations would publish, and you find that many of our Caribbean countries are actually ahead in terms of developmental indices, ahead of Africa, ahead of many African countries. So you then, again, you have that thing, because they're looking for development, we are looking for development. And the same way that we're looking for partners in Europe and elsewhere, because that's where the money is, they are doing the same thing. And so I have been one who has been arguing that even while we do that, which is necessary, we should also look to develop relations between Africa and the Caribbean. So I think the question is an excellent question. I think the answer is a difficult answer, because it really requires us to examine our peculiar history, going back centuries, with Africa. And if you say to a youngster, I'm teaching you French, well, he knows he could go France, Guadeloupe, Martinique. He could even go to Africa and speak French and be understood. If I'm going to teach English, English is a universal language. If I'm going to teach Spanish, he can go again to much of Europe, all of Latin and South America, and speak Spanish, some of the Caribbean, and speak Spanish. If you teach him Mandarin, he can go to China and Taiwan, Hong Kong, those places, and teach that with large populations. If you say you teach him some, African language, Swahili, or some other language, the question that he will ask you is, so where are you going to go with that? Where am I going to go with that? With English, I can go to America. With French, I can go to France. With Spanish, I can go to Latin America. Where would I go with Swahili? Because a lot of the African languages are peculiar to Africa. They don't really have any application outside. I mean, that is like telling me, Nivision speak a particular way. Would you teach that? There was a big debate, I don't know if you remember, Mr. Hand, in the US, where they had this thing called Ebonics. And black people in America was saying you should teach your children in Ebonics so they could understand. And there was a big pushback because Ebonics is not English. It's not English. So you have that concern, and I think it's a legitimate question, but it's perhaps beyond the scope of this press conference. It really would require some proper study and some proper discussion as to where we go moving forward. The federal booster shot now offered to the fully vaxxed. Will I take it? I'm speaking even now to my doctors, Mr. Hanley, to determine whether or not I am a candidate, and if so, I have no difficulty taking the booster shot. None whatsoever. Federal government, you say, provided over $371 million to the NIA. I first want to say that that is not true. That is false. Why do I say that is false? Is because the Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, would have made certain statements which I recognize have gained some currency in the public sphere. But a significant part of this $371 million figure never came to the NIA, because I believe the Prime Minister said that included in that was monies that he said was paid for things like economic costs for students that will be paid to UE by the federal government, step workers. I think he mentioned police, if memory serves. He mentioned PEP, which is the poverty, I'm sorry, not PEP, PAP, the Poverty Alleviation Program. None of that money would have come to the NIA. Those are programs that, according to the Prime Minister, would have benefited both islands. And so he would have sought to apportion some kind of value to what? So if 10 people in Nevis get in the PAP, which is $500 a month, that's $5,000. So he said, he put that in the number. But that 5,000 never came to the NIA. The number that we had that we have looked at and that has come to the NIA is more in the order of about $260 million. That is money that the NIA would have received. And I have said it here time and time again that whilst we are absolutely grateful that we've received something, we continue to make it very clear that this is nowhere near a fair share of the CBI resources that we have always said should be shared equitably. And I don't say equally because St. Kitts is much bigger than Nevis. We can't expect an equal share, but we expect an equitable share. And the Prime Minister knows that. I think the Cabinet knows that. I think we've been very clear. In fact, the Charlestown Accord that formed the basis of Team Unity spoke in terms to the CBI proceeds being shared on a pro rata population basis. And since Nevis has 1/3 of the Federation's population, then one would expect that 1/3 of the monies would flow. In fact, when we have done the math, less than 10% of the money from the Citizenship by Investment program is flowing. And I think that that has to be said because it is no secret, and I'm not in the business of secrets. I'm a public servant, and I'm here to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So the situation, I have said, is way better than it has ever been. But way better doesn't mean that there's not room for further improvement. And I think that all my colleagues in St. Kitts understand that there has to be continued improvement in the relationship. Now, you more specifically asked, where has this money been spent? And I've heard that question, and I sometimes respond in a little flippant way because I said, is it that our people can't see? I don't have a list in front of me, but offhand, just from my mind, the Mondo track, we spoke about that earlier. We have the brand new Newcastle police station. We have the water taxi pier at Wally, which in my view has been a monumental investment insofar as the water taxi business, which remains 100% Nivision owned at this point. Tremendous support for them. We have the CCTV center that has gone up. We had works that were done on various roads all around Nevis. Construction work that has been done. We have the new Treasury building in Charlestown, which was a significant investment. We have generators up at Nevlik. One of those Watsilla generators, 3.8, costs about $5 million US. So we have that. We have the fact that we had to pay our public servants. Some people scoff at that. But I continue to remind our people, in fact, I just saw the figures a few days ago, that our public service bill each month is somewhere in the order of 7 million EC dollars per month. That is what we pay to our public servants, those who are making salaries, who are established workers, those who are making what we call wages, who might be week-to-week workers, or who are not part of the permanent establishment, and pensions. $7 million a month. Now you do the math. Do the math. $7 million a month. 7 times 12. I believe that's $84 million a year. And you multiply 84 million by 7 years and see what you get. Because the 260 million that is being bandied about has come to us not in a single check, Mr. Hanley, it has come over 7 years. So in the past 2 years, for example, we have only been able to survive in Nevis because we got some money from CBI that we were able to use and we were able to borrow. Otherwise, we couldn't keep our workers paid on time and in full as we were able to do. So when people ask, what have you used this money to do? We've used the money to keep the island running, just like St. Kitts has used their portion of the money to keep St. Kitts running. I don't hear nobody asking, well, what you do with the 90+% of the money you keep in St. Kitts. But little Nevis, which get a little pittance, is constantly being asked to explain what you do with your pittance. But Sinkers will get the lion's share. Nobody's asking, well, what happened? Where you spend this billions of dollars in Sinkers on? And I think if you were to ask the question, where have the billions that Sinkers has got from CBI gone? They will tell you, well, look at the roads. Look at Port Zante. Look at the development that has happened in St. Kitts. Similarly in Nevis, we have developed the island. The hospital, how could I forget that? The expansion up there. All of those have been projects that we have used resources on. And Mr. Hanley, I think if the time comes that we need to itemize, dollar for dollar, what this looks like. But I use the wage bill just as an indication, because I believe that the wage bill of $7 million a month says to us that what comes over from the Citizenship by Investment program is not even enough to cover that. We ain't get to debt repayment yet, servicing our debt. We haven't yet got to training and all the other things that we do. Goods, equipment at the hospital. So we have to be realistic when we look at this. And these numbers, when thrown around, they sound spectacular. When assessed, we're really not talking about a lot of money in the context of 7 years and in the context of a country where billions, with a B, of dollars have flowed in to Bastia as a direct result of the Citizenship by Investment program. So I just hope that that helps to clarify some of the concern. But the number of 371 million is inaccurate. It is not true. The NIA has never received $371 million. A lot of that money was money spent that benefited Nevis but never came to the NIA. Are there any other questions for me?
Shamika Bajan, Von Radio, and this is my final question for today, Mr. Premier, and it is a tourism-related question. The Seabourn Odyssey cruise ship was here a few days ago, and a number of tourists were seen strolling through Charlestown without a mask, and some were seen entering taxis without their masks. What can the Ministry of Tourism do about this in the assistance of enhancing our COVID-19 security protocols, as another cruise vessel, Starfire, will be arriving soon? That's it.
What can the Ministry of Tourism do? We can continue to encourage the tourists that come, just like we encourage our own people, to adhere to the protocols. We now have initiated the task force. What do they call it? They don't call it the task force. Compliance officers. Yes, thank you. We've now had a trained compliance officers deployed in Nevis, the first since this pandemic started. And we are hopeful that when the ships are in, that those will be deployed. Just to remind people, put on their mask, etc. I'm a little surprised to hear you say that tourists were walking around Charlestown, because my understanding was that there was a bubble arrangement in place where they could only go into a designated taxi and be taken to designated sites. I myself had not had that report come to me about anybody just meandering around Charlestown. So I would be surprised to hear that. I know that one of the sites they went to is close to Charlestown. That is the Hamilton Museum site. So I don't know if that might have been, when people see them there and say, well, they're wondering about Charlestown. But my understanding is that has not been the case. But I certainly will take the concern back and to say to the compliance task force that when the ships come in, they need to be there to monitor. But your point, however, is a helpful one, because it brings me back to where I started about the need for us to vaccinate. Because I would feel far more comfortable if I were vaccinated in Charlestown, seeing somebody who I also know is vaccinated, because the tourists who come off have to be vaccinated. I'd be far more comfortable knowing that I have some measure of protection and that they have some measure of protection. So I'm watching them and they're watching me, but they're protected and I'm protected. And I feel that that gives us a bit more comfort. Now, if you're unvaccinated and you have the same experience, it could be, to my mind, a little unnerving, because you don't know. So it really behooves us again to get vaccinated and to ensure that we protect ourselves, our families, and our communities. I will, as I say, take this back about the mask. I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, Mr. Brantley, my take on this. Can the ministry not inform the captain of the workers before the tourist reaches on land? That it is mandatory for them to do so before coming.
But the point is we do that. That's the point I'm making. You leave here now and you walk into Charleston, I'm sure you're going to see a tonload of our own people walking up and down without a mask. Is it that we haven't said it a million times on radio? We have. People have been fined. Tickets have been given out. People still would walk around without a mask. So it's not for want of saying. We have said, and we continue to say. But, and I will speak for myself. I think sometimes you use yourself as the best example. I jumped out of the vehicle this morning, going somewhere, and it's when I was halfway walking, I remember, I did not have on a mask. So I had to double back to the vehicle to get the mask, to put it on. You know, it's not a natural thing. So sometimes people think, and even if you start off with it, you pull it down over your chin. Some people say they have difficulties breathing and all of these kinds of issues. So it is not for want, and I don't want you to go with the impression that we are not reinforcing what the protocols are, because we are reinforcing. But people will be people, and people walk up and down and they decide to take off their mask, they decide to pull it down, they go and they eat, and they didn't take it back up when they finish eating. I mean, all of these things happen. We don't have the capacity to have somebody trailing every person on the island to say, listen, put on your mask, pull up your mask. That's why I'm hoping that with the compliance team there, and with our own people, because if a tourist comes, he's not masked and stepping into a taxi, the taxi driver should say, I'm sorry, miss, or I'm sorry, sir, you have to put on your mask. So all of these are things where each of us has a role to play. It can't be just the government having that function. It has to be that you yourself, if people are coming into your store, you say, please, you need to put on your mask. You know, I've had that where people have said to me, please, Mr. Brantley, put on your mask. And I put it on right away, you know. So I think that all of us have a role to play. But I will take the concern back, because I said you've raised something about it walking around in town, which I didn't know that was happening or allowed to happen. Are there any more questions?
Okay, Hewlett, again, one brief question. What can we expect in the 2021-2022 NIA budget? I know last year we had what we called it, a COVID budget. So what are we going to see? If we're going to see increased or new taxes, any eases in some of the moratoriums, anything at all? What can we expect?
The budget will be read on the 7th of December. I suggest you come then, and you will hear what you can expect for the next year. So we will deal with the budget when we get to the budget, which is not too far away. Okay, that appears to be all the questions. I want to thank the media houses that were here. I want to thank those that were tuned in, that listened to the press conference. We did 2 hours, so I think we had a good run. I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to take the opportunity, since I won't be back at this podium for this year, to wish everybody a wonderful Christmas season. Please be safe. Please go out and vaccinate so that you can protect yourself and your families and our community. Those who are out of work, I know you've been struggling, but their jobs now available again. Put yourself in a position to take advantage of those jobs. We look forward certainly to continuing to serve you, and I wish each and everybody a wonderful Christmas season and a Happy New Year when it comes. Thank you.
You are listening to the monthly press conference on Nevis from Premier Mark Brantley. And now we will continue with our regularly scheduled program here on 1FM 98.9.
Found the sound 98.9 FM.
Campari, grapefruit, easy fi we. Brother he no hard it, easy fi we. Campari, in a cup, easy fi we. Brother he no hard.